Newton, who is joining us here on the phone. That's Setti Warren. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Chris. I'm doing well. How about you?
Great, beautiful. It's a beautiful day today, and it's a wonderful and very important weekend.
Yes.
And I appreciate you making some time to join us here and talk to the folks. You were just here in New Bedford, though, Setti. Let's do this. We'll talk about what you talked about when you were here in New Bedford, but tell us a little bit about yourself for those folks who don't know you.
Happy to, Chris. And again, thanks for having me on. First and foremost, I do want to express my sentiments and appreciation to military families, Gold Star families. I'm an Iraq War veteran. My dad was a Korean War vet. My grandfather served in World War II, Battle of the Bulge. My family has a deep commitment to the country and to the military, and I'm very appreciative. And I know, Chris, you had mentioned to us there's a family, the Trahan family of Tyler Trahan, listening to this show, and I know they're a Gold Star family, and I just want to express my appreciation and thanks to that family. As far as my background is concerned, as I mentioned to you, I was in the military for 9 years, served as a Navy reservist, and did a tour of duty in Iraq. I've been mayor of Newton for 2 terms. This is my 8th year as the mayor. And I have a very deep commitment, lifelong commitment to public service. I was very fortunate that I was able to grow up in Newton. My dad, as I mentioned, served in the military and grew up in a tough neighborhood in New York, in Harlem, and he ended up purchasing the home where I grew up here in Newton with my 2 sisters, and where I live today with my wife and 2 children, 8 and 5. With GI Bill benefits. This is a government-sponsored program, as everyone knows, well aware, to give people of modest means to make ends meet, make sure they can take care of themselves, their kids to do better than they did. And I feel very strongly, after moving around the Commonwealth, seeing what's been happening, that is not happening in the state of Massachusetts. So I believe that this is a generational election. I believe very strongly that state government is not hearing, the folks on Beacon Hill are not hearing what's happening in our cities and towns from people, and we need a change. We need to, the status quo is not good enough. And when I came down to New Bedford last week, great city, incredible people, hardworking, smart, but just what is not happening is we're not making those investments so that people can have that foundation of economic opportunity now and in the future.
We're speaking with the mayor of Newton, Setti Warren, who's seeking the Democrat nomination for governor here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I'll tell you just briefly here, as I was getting ready for this interview, I spoke to a few people who know you, including the former mayor of New Bedford, Scott Lang, and he was saying that he's been at the White House a couple of times when you were there. I know you worked in the Clinton administration in the White House, and he said the unique thing about you is that you knew everybody by name who worked in the White House, the people that actually worked there on a day-to-day basis, not necessarily even the political people. And he wanted me to, he pointed that out to me because he thought that was very unique, that here's a guy, you knew everybody in the White House, and he sensed that you took a real interest in them because you knew the names of their kids and things like that. And I thought that was very telling.
It's interesting. I'm glad Mayor Lang mentioned that, and I'm grateful that he observed that. I think if we don't see each other as human beings, and if we don't look past the obvious differences that we have, whether where we live, our race, our political background, and we reach out to one another, and we see past that, that's an important quality that we need today in our public sphere, in our public life, and it's something that I was taught as a young kid in my family. So that stuck with me and through my various jobs and career.
Well, it's also it's not something you learn, right? It's something that's probably it's either in you or it isn't in you. So, Mr. Mayor, talk about some of the promises that you're talking about, promises that must be kept. In other words, you're looking at this as a compact with the people, a new social compact with the new generation here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Talk a little bit about your priorities and things you think that need to be done.
Well, we do need a new social compact, and as I announced last week in front of my house, what I talked about was just that. If we're going to address economic inequality, which I do believe is the issue of our time, we have to recognize what's happening right now. People are working harder than they ever have, some with 2 jobs. They don't have solid benefits in place. There are many people out there that are being crushed by student debt, and they just can't make ends meet. There are men and women who can't afford basic health care that's accessible and affordable, and many people in our Commonwealth are falling behind. So 2 things I mentioned last week that I continue to mention that I think are important proposals. One is free public college. We need to redefine what public education is in the 21st century today. We know that having a high school degree alone is not going to enable someone to be able to make ends meet in this economy. So if we know that, then we ought to make sure that we provide free public higher ed. The second thing that I proposed last week was a single-payer healthcare system here in the state. We know that healthcare costs is making people choose between basic prescriptions and access to healthcare and things like paying the rent or paying the mortgage or putting food on the table, and that's just wrong. Both of these proposals, for me, I think on the Commonwealth, make sense from an economic standpoint and building this new social compact, but they are also morally the right thing to do. So I think, when we think about this new challenge and this new economy and the generational challenge that we have, these are 2 areas where I believe we can make a real difference.
We're speaking with the current mayor of Newton, Setti Warren, who's seeking the Democratic nomination for governor here in Massachusetts, and presumably will then take on Governor Baker in the fall, assuming he gets the nomination. Talk to me a little bit. You served on the federal level. You worked for Senator Kerry. You worked in the Clinton administration. And then you came back to Newton and worked as a mayor. Talk a little bit about your experience in local government and how that's going to impact your management, assuming you become the governor.
Yes. Well, when I returned home from Iraq in 2008 to raise my family, I did a year-long deployment. I made a decision to run for mayor of Newton because my city is in a financial crisis. We had a $40 million structural deficit. We had 2 of the worst conditioned school buildings in the state. We had 1 AAA bond rating that was in danger of being downgraded, and we had no rainy day fund. We had no reserves. Newton's a great city, a lot of built-in pluses, but did not have the kind of leadership it needed to address the issues I mentioned. In the 8 years since I've been mayor, we have eliminated this $40 million structural deficit. We have 2 AAA bond ratings, building 5 new elementary schools in the next 6 years, and our reserve fund that didn't exist is now up to $20 million. We just put money into it this last budget that was passed about a week ago. Really proud of the work we've done. Reason why we were able to get all this work done is because we were open and transparent about where we were spending money, how we were spending money, and we made sure that those dollars went towards outcomes for people. So education, infrastructure, and public safety were areas that we had to make sure. We were very fair in collective bargaining with 17 unions. All 17 contracts were up. And then the second thing is we were honest about revenue. We needed more revenue even after we had done all that work in finding savings. I put a tax override on the ballot in my town during my re-election year, and we won those ballot questions for buildings and infrastructure education. When I think about what needs to happen on the state level, we have to be honest as well about what's going on. We have to be open and transparent about where we're spending money. I would apply the same principles that I did as chief executive of Newton as the governor. We got to look at these tax loopholes that are in place in our tax code, giving away revenue to special interests that we desperately need to address outcomes for people and economic inequality. And even when we go through and we find the savings and we eliminate these loopholes and we're honest and transparent about it, I know we're going to need new revenue. It's just not enough where we are. The state budget is in crisis. It has been lurching from year to year. They're patching the holes using one-time revenue up there, and it's wrong. So we have to fix that, and that's why I support the Fair Share Tax Amendment, the so-called millionaires tax, which will be on the ballot in 2018, at the same time as governor. So when I think about the challenges at the state level, I think about, and what I did as mayor, I would take the same open, transparent approach. I will be direct and honest with people, and every dollar needs to go towards, and from my perspective, addressing this issue of economic inequality. If we're spending money in other areas that don't go towards that, we're going to have to make a change. So that's how I look at it. Certainly, in my 8 years, I feel very good about what we've done in Newton. We could take a lot of that thinking to the State House.
We're speaking with Setti Warren, who's currently the mayor of Newton. Mr. Mayor, what's your website if people want to learn more about you?
SettiWarren.com, SETTI Warren.com. I would love for folks to check out the website, and it's a little introductory video that tells folks a little bit about me and why I'm running and my background. I'd invite people to take a look at it.
You were just down here in New Bedford. We have a story about it on WBSM.com. You got a chance to sit with John Mitchell and talk a little bit about what's going on here in the New Bedford area. Talk about some of the things he brought to your attention or things you two discussed and what your thoughts are on helping the economy of southeastern Massachusetts.
Yeah, I had a chance to spend time with my friend John Mitchell, who I've known for several years, and a lot of the issues we talked about, he's been championing for a long time. We've been talking about one of the issues is the port and the dredging that needs to occur and the investments in that port in New Bedford. Here's an example when I think about economic inequality. With investments in infrastructure like the port, New Bedford could really continue to grow the economy down there. It's an incredible place, a port where ships could come in and out, grow one of the world-leading fishing industries even further. So I think there's real opportunity. We also spoke about renewable energy and wind and the mayor's attempt to bring that to New Bedford, which I also think is really forward-thinking to grow the New Bedford economy, create good higher-paying jobs right there in New Bedford. This is where the governor, Beacon Hill, can really make a difference in addressing economic inequality in the state, making those investments. And then lastly, we talked about South Coast Rail. I'm a believer in South Coast Rail and transportation. So one of the areas that drives economic inequality is the lack of good transportation. And I believe we need to make that investment. It's been talked about for many years, a couple of decades. We need to step up and do it so that New Bedford can be a part of this economic growth that's happening in Boston, that we're seeing in certain sectors, life sciences in the Boston area, health in the Boston area, biotech in the Boston area. There's no reason why New Bedford, which is a fantastic city, can't also be an engine of economic growth in the state.
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out, Mayor Warren, because I have thought of that too. It shouldn't be that people only have to can only commute to Boston for good-paying jobs. It ought to be that people can work and live 20 minutes apart.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Would you look to the deal that was done to lure GE, General Electric, from Connecticut to Massachusetts, and there are some controversial parts probably that really haven't been examined yet in total, but would you look to do something similar to that for southeastern Massachusetts? In other words, make development down here a priority for your administration?
Development outside Boston, and particularly South Coast, the area of southeastern Massachusetts, will be a priority. This is when I think about what's happening in our state. As I said, there are all these cranes and great growth happening in the Boston area, but what's not happening is the great growth that in places like New Bedford on the South Coast. The GE deal couple of things on the GE deal. We'll have to see what kind of benefits come out of that for the people of Boston. I'm not sure where that's going to go, but my priority would be to, as the mayor and I discussed, there are areas of growth right there in New Bedford and the South Coast. Renewable energy, certainly. I think there's a lot of great potential with the port there as well. So those are places I'd concentrate.
Just before we let you go here, Mayor, just make your pitch to the voters as to why they ought to take a look at your website, take a look at you, and maybe support you for the Democratic nomination.
Well, here's what I would say, and thank you again, Chris. Look, my belief is that the status quo is not good enough. The question is, in this election right now, what kind of Commonwealth do we want to be? Are we a state that is okay with growing economic inequality, people and communities falling behind, not having that foundational opportunity that previous generations had? I think it's wrong what is happening on Beacon Hill. I think it's wrong that we're not addressing the budget, being honest about what it's going to take to make those investments in public education, as I said, health care, transportation, and housing together, and growing higher paying jobs for people who live, as we discussed today, on the South Coast and everywhere in the state. So that is why I'm running. That's why I would ask for support throughout the Commonwealth. And I know we can not only win, but we can change the way governance works on Beacon Hill if we have the courage together to stand up and make the changes that are needed to provide that generational investment that I spoke about.
Hey, thank you again so much for joining us. This has been Setti Warren, as the mayor of Newton, and running for the Democratic nomination for the governor of the Commonwealth. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, and we'll look forward to having you back again real soon.
Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. And if you would like to get more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button below on the WBSM channel. Subscribe to WBSM, and that way you'll always get the latest videos here from Sunday Brunch and the other wonderful programs on WBSM.